Thank you so much to Rashid and Gamma Xi Phi for having me here today as your speaker. I'm very grateful to be here and hopeful that we will be able to have a little bit of a discussion to talk about some things. I spend most of my time in intimate conversation with others in my full-time role as a therapist. And today I am inviting you into an intimate conversation, not so much with me, but with yourself. So to that end, you might want to grab something to write with and something to write on, just in case there's something here that you want to capture for later, or something you might tell yourself that you would want to remember. After you've gathered yourself, I'm going to ask you to stop everything else that you're doing, to feel your feet flat on the floor, to spread your toes wide, allow your shoulders to be down and back and your spine to be straight, allowing yourself to sit comfortably in your seat, closing your eyes if you feel comfortable. Allowing your attention to settle on your breath, on your in-breath and your out-breath. I invite you to take one hand and place it on your chest and another hand to place on your stomach. Allowing yourself to notice the inhale and the exhale, the rise and the fall of your hands as you are breathing. Noticing how your hands feel against your body. Noticing these things without judgment. Noticing these things with the flexibility of attention. Your breath is your compass. It is a way for you to know how you're doing emotionally in any given moment, if you allow yourself to notice. If you allow yourself to listen. I invite you to take a few more breaths in and out in this moment, and then to allow yourself to come back to the present. I was born in the unforgiving concrete storm cloud of pre-gentrification Brooklyn, New York. A place where the cracks in the sidewalk in front of our soil-colored 3-story walk-up could swallow you whole if you did not watch your step. A place where the streets flooded with bare-chested children, brown girls with skinny legs, illegal water from fire hydrants, and blaring sirens all summer long. A place of endless 3-story walk-ups, just like mine, including one who housed a father I would never know. Brooklyn taught me a lot about art, justice, and community. But joy and becoming whole, those traits were a bit harder for me to find. Growing up, art informed my everyday, from the graffiti on the walls to the hip hop blaring from stereos belonging to Black boys with high top fades who hung out on the corners, to the musicality of the rapid fire Spanish tongues of my Puerto Rican neighbors. I learned about injustice from the multicolored crack vials in my school's playground and the fact that I never seemed to see any white people get arrested on TV. I learned about community when I was too late to coming home by the time the streetlights came on, and a neighbor down the street had already informed my mama that she had sent me on my way when she had found me staring at the sky for too long. Few opportunities existed for a brown girl like me, so at the age of 13, I found myself standing with a bundle of my history in one hand and a cheap trunk in the other, as my mother and I lugged myself and my stuff up the stairs of my single gender dorm room at a prestigious Connecticut boarding school, a place I definitely could not afford, even with the full scholarship. That began my long journey of working too hard for too little and waiting for permission or approval to value who I was as I was. I'm sure I'm not alone in this. Today, as a psychologist, trauma specialist, and coach, I focus on those who have survived the unimaginable. I remind them of how to value themselves, teaching them to give themselves permission to take up space as they strive to make sense of a world that has become senseless to them. In order to teach them to value themselves, I have to become expert in teaching about self-care. And what precious few of the self-care experts out there will tell you, I will tell you now. True self-care is to believe that you deserve to live whole, complete, perfect, entire unto yourself. And true self-care is not only about what you say or what you do when you have free time, but how you approach your life and the world around you. Before I offer to you my understanding of self-care, I want to give you some clues so that you can know when you might not be living in a way that is caring for yourself, when you might not be living whole. And just in case you need the nudge, this is the taking notes part. Number one, you wake up, do your work, interact, eat, drink, sleep, all on autopilot. You look up after a week, a month, 6 months, a year, 10 years, and you barely recognize your life or yourself. Number two, when asked who you are or what you enjoy or why you spend time doing the things that you are doing, you have nothing to say. And I don't know counts. Number three, you cannot show up as your authentic self in any of your relationships. Number four, your mother or partner or lover or sibling or grandmother dies and you go right back to work, right back to business as usual. Number five, you marry the wrong person. Number six, you become the wrong person that somebody else married. Number seven, you live your life according to social media or your parents or your survival strategies. Number eight, you have no idea what I mean when I say living your life according to your survival strategies. Number nine, you never stopped to ask yourself why you are working so hard and where you are going with all of this anyway. Number 10, you live with a chronic sense of emptiness. Number 11, you drink too much, smoke too much, eat too much, shop too much, running from one too much version to the next too much, and find as many ways as possible to distract yourself from yourself. Number 12, you lose the ability to create or love or laugh or cry. Number 13, you are much better acquainted with the past or future and have little to no idea about how to connect to the present moment. Let's pause here. Take a moment Allow the list to settle in. Allow yourself to notice ways in which this list shows up in your own life. Notice with compassion and honesty. We have all been there. Some of us are there now. I have been there. And having been there, I know firsthand that we can move through the learned behaviors that got us here in the first place. James Baldwin told us that an artist's job is to be accountable to their present moment by telling its truth. In order to create with accountability, with an eye towards justice, service, philanthropy, intersectionality, equity, all principles that your organization holds in high esteem, the artist must connect to purpose and intention, and the artist must live in such a way that they remain a clear channel for the voice of their creativity to ring out with clarity and boldness. When I used to perform and choreograph, one of the most recent works I created was speaking to trauma, speaking to the anguish of sexual abuse, war, and intimate partner violence. This 10-minute piece, mostly done blindfolded, was my attempt at being accountable. And I suggest, believe that you should do the same. So how can I remain purposeful, clear, and accountable? By living whole. And how do we live whole? We care for the very person we live with all of the time, ourselves. I promise this is not the part where I tell you to get weekly mani-pedis and massages, but if that's your thing, go for it. As you are scheduling your appointment, though, I invite you to remember that we are multidimensional beings. And mani-pedis and massages are only skin deep. So what else you got? There are levels to this self-care, self-valuing thing. Attention, nourishment, maintenance, fulfillment. Level 1. We start caring for ourselves by learning how to listen to our bodies, our emotions, our minds, our energy, our inner knowing, and yes, even our memories. We can only really live attentively if we learn how to plug in to the present. That means putting the distractions away and turning inward, breathing deeply and feeling your feet on the floor, really tasting the meals that you're eating, one thing at a time, even if that one thing is doing the dishes. Living attentively means responding to the present moment, meeting the present moment where it is, even if the present moment is bringing us confusion, uncertainty, or distress. We decide to meet the present because that is where our lives are, here, today. We attend to ourselves by becoming responsive, by eating when we feel hunger, sleeping when we feel tired, resting when we have done too much, asking for our needs to be met, and reaching out when we need support. Self-attention and responsiveness is a daily commitment to you. Nourishment. Now that you have heard what you need because you've been practicing listening to yourself, are you meeting those needs in ways that sustain you, that give you energy and motivation to continue your work? When you reach out for help, are you reaching out to relationships that are fulfilling, trusting, affirming, and uplifting, and setting boundaries in those relationships that are not? When you pick up your phone, open your computer, scroll through your feed, what kind of information are you bringing into your mind and into your emotional space? When you reach for food, are you reaching for food that will cause you physical harm in the short or long term, or are you reaching for something that will feed your cells? Whatever we nourish, attend to, and nurture in our lives grows. Are you nourishing, attending, and nurturing what you want? Maintenance. So we are not cars, but we are sort of like cars. If you do not change the oil in your car regularly, it will work for a while, and then it won't. Just like us. If we do not attend to our well-being regularly, eventually we break down and we have nothing left to give. And how can you create from depletion? How can you create from exhaustion? We don't control everything that happens to us. We fall ill unexpectedly. Things don't work the way they used to. But we do have considerable control about how we maintain ourselves. We maintain ourselves by regularly taking time away from our obligations to spend time with ourselves. We maintain ourselves by purposefully choosing relationships that bring us fulfillment, meaning, joy, and peace. Leaving the drama for your mama, as they say. We maintain ourselves by having, knowing, and enforcing our boundaries. And we maintain ourselves by staying connected to a spiritual practice or community or some entity that reminds us that we are connected to each other and to all things. We maintain ourselves by intentionally creating a plan to keep our well-being at the forefront. Have you created yours? And if not, what are you waiting for? Fulfillment. Life does not promise us happiness. I'm sure I don't have to tell you this. But we can find connection, fulfillment, and meaning, even in the midst of disappointment and despair. Fulfillment speaks to purpose and intentionality. Remember, we cannot access the clarity we need to truly create without having a connection to some kind of meaningfulness. A sense of meaning and fulfillment often go hand in hand. So what fills you? What brings tears to your eyes, butterflies to your stomach, and makes time fly by? What are you usually doing when you feel most grounded, motivated, and at peace? Where in your life is the intersection between joy and fulfillment, and how much time are you making for it? I have come a long way from the concrete of Brooklyn. I have learned to live through hard things and have learned how to craft my life on the other side of those hard things. I have learned to show up in the world in a way that is authentic and vulnerable, and to do the work I am meant to do. I have learned that I must be as clear and as grounded as possible, as whole as possible. I can be useful to my work and my clients if I don't care for my well-being, but I would not be the healer that I need to be for them. And I would venture to guess that if you don't care for yourself, you won't be the father that you need to be, the great author the world needs, the photographer who shines light on injustice and shifts the world's perspective, the dancer who inspires a profound sense of awe in all who see her, the musician that moves listeners to tears or action, the painter whose piece revolutionizes the art world. If you do not show up for you and your own well-being, you are not showing up to your art, your work, and your life as fully as you can. And if you don't show up for you, who will? Thank you. Take great care of yourself and each other.